Hi everyone and welcome to my video. I'm Sam from the IELTS Teacher and today we're going to be looking at weather. Talking about weather for 2 minutes in the speaking part 2 of IELTS Speaking Test. So sure, a lot of people, and understandably so, have problems talking about the weather. They have problems with vocabulary, with how to describe the weather, what kind of sentences to use when you're doing that. And so that's basically what the focus of this lesson is going to be. It's going to be focused on vocabulary and how to describe the weather. There's also going to be my own answer to a speaking part 2 question about the weather. The purpose of this answer is not necessarily to be a realistic speaking part 2 answer, but again, to demonstrate how to talk about the weather and how to use vocabulary related to the weather, that kind of thing. So okay, let's go. It's bucketing it down. You'll find out what that means soon. Weather in IELTS speaking. Let's move on then. When talking about weather, you can use two different structures. It was plus adjective, like it was a bright sunny day yesterday, and there were plus a noun. There have been a lot of torrential downpours today, though. So yeah, you know, there is, there are, there was, there were, there have been, whatever, the to be verb. We don't use the words weather and temperature usually. Now, the reason why I put this is that when I often ask my students to talk about the weather, they often try to rely on these words, and we don't normally do that, us native English speakers. You know, they'll say things like, the weather is hot, the temperature is hot, or the weather is windy today. And, well, sometimes this might be like grammatically or in a vocabulary sense correct, but it's just very awkward and unnatural. It's not how we would put it. Instead, as you can see, we'd often use it. Like right now, it is sunny. It's a sunny day today, and that's how we'd put it. Or we'd also describe some like noun features, like there are a few clouds in the sky at the moment, there is a little bit of rain, this kind of thing. That kind of language can be used to describe the weather. Let's go on to the next one then. See the vocabulary below for describing the weather. Can you make sentences to describe the weather today, your favorite and least favorite weather? First things first. Let's go through the vocabulary. We have cold, snowy, and windy weather. It's freezing. It's bone-chilling. It's bitterly cold. It's bone-chilling. You know, bone is the white matter that's in your body. It's hard, like you have bones in your fingers, in your hands, everywhere. That's bones. If it is bone-chilling, then it's so cold it's making your bones feel cold, right? Very, very cold. It's bitterly cold. You know, we use this word bitterly, and it kind of means unpleasant. Basically, all of these phrases, they mean the same. It's very, very cold. That's all it means. It is chilly. That just means a little cold. It's like, it's chilly. It's like that. It is snowy. Now we have some nouns. There is heavy snowfall. There is light snowfall. These are the collocations you can use with snowfall. There were biting winds. Again, it just basically means, well, biting winds means very cold winds. So cold that it feels like they're biting you. It's like, wind is biting you. That's how cold it is. Let's go on to wet weather then. It was rainy. Or it was raining. Yeah, something that could cause a bit of confusion, I can imagine, is that you can describe the same kind of weather feature, but with different word forms. Like here we have it was rainy, which is an adjective. It was rainy. Or you can also use the verb to rain. It was raining. They both mean the same thing. They're just expressed in a bit of a different way, that's all. It was drizzling. drizzling, drizzling. It was drizzling. That just means a light rain. It's not something pleasant, though. It sort of brings to mind miserable weather, horrible light rain that just makes you feel bad. That's drizzle. It was chucketing it down. It was bucketing it down. So this brings some things to mind. It brings angels in the sky above the clouds. They got buckets and they're chucking buckets of water down at us. That's how heavy that is. That's heavy rain, man. That's chucking it down. That's very heavy rain. That's all that means. Chucking it down, bucketing it down. That's what it means. There was some light rain, some heavy rain. Those are the collocations you can use. There were heavy showers. There were torrential downpours. These both mean the same thing as well as like heavy rain, but these are more, it's more academic, more formal kind of language. This is the kind of language you would expect to hear in a news broadcast from the weather report, that kind of thing. You'd more likely hear words like showers and downpours to mean rain, and torrential rain, torrential downpours just means heavy rain. That's all. Okay. Hot weather. It was blisteringly hot. Blisteringly, like that. It was blisteringly hot. Well, blisters, the noun. If you get hot water, boiling water on your skin, what happens? Well, blisters will start to pop up. These little bubbles of skin, it's horrible. These bubbles of skin coming up where the burn is. Those are blisters. So it was blisteringly hot, just means very, very hot, like extremely hot. It was scorching hot. Scorching as well, to scorch something. That refers to like grill marks. You know, if you, when you're having a barbecue and you put a burger down on the grill, on the metal grill tray, you're cooking it as an intense heat. Well, when you take the burger off, you see scorch marks, the intense burns from the tray, from the rack, basically. So that's what scorching is, very intense heat. It's blisteringly hot, it's scorching hot. Again, means the same thing. It's very hot. That's all it means. I mean, the weather in England never gets that bad. It never gets hot enough to be extremely hot like that. So these kinds of phrases, they're used in exaggeration, of course. But sure, it just means very hot. It was boiling. The same thing. You know what boiling is? Boiling water. It just means very hot. It was so muggy, humid, stifling. These all refer to humidity. Humidity is when there is moisture in the air. There is water gas in the air. You know, some of these Southeast Asian countries, Thailand, Vietnam, for example, these have humid climates. They are like jungles, right? When you're there, it's hot, you're sweating a lot, you generally feel kind of lethargic and tired. Well, that's because there's a lot of moisture in the air. There is high humidity. Muggy, humid, stifling, these all mean the same thing. It means high humidity, basically. Okay, cool. Nice weather. Nice weather. Okay, so you probably notice I struggled to think of ways of describing nice weather. And to be honest, generally the way in which we describe nice weather is kind of simple. I mean, I guess, you know, when you think about nice weather, there's not much to say, right? It's nice. It's not too hot, not too cold. The sun is out, but it's not too powerful, and it's not raining. I guess basically when we're describing nice weather, we're talking about it in terms of absence of bad things, of bad qualities. You know, it's not raining, it's not cold, and this kind of thing. But here's some language anyway that you could use. There were clear blue skies. There were cloudless skies. means the same thing. There's no clouds in the skies. What it means. That's nice. It was a gorgeous day. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. It was a gorgeous day. A bright sunny day. Gorgeous just means lovely. It was a lovely day. Like that. Okay. Tea break. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Can you make sentences to describe the weather today, your favorite and least favorite weather? Okay, what I want you to do, have a go at this. I want you to pause this video and just try. Can you make some sentences describing these kinds of weather? Do it now. Okay, cool. Let's see if I can do it then. Describe the weather today. Well, it's a pretty lovely day today. I have to admit, the weather's pretty nice. There are clear blue skies. Earlier there were a few clouds, but at the moment it's pretty much cloudless. It's quite a bright sunny day. Earlier today, I have to admit, it was a bit sort of dull and miserable, mainly because of the cloud cover. There was a fair amount of cloud cover, you could say. There's a fair amount of cloud cover. A cloudy day you can describe as dull, miserable, this kind of thing. Okay, that's the weather today. What's my favourite kind of weather? Well, this relates to the Speaking Part 2 question that we're going to look at next, but so you'll find out more in detail. But yeah, the kind of weather I like hardly ever comes around, and it's when it's snowing, but the temperature is all right. It's not too cold. It's generally okay. So yeah, snowy but warm is my favorite kind of weather. Sounds like a bit of a contradiction in terms, but yeah, that's the kind of weather I like. What's my least favorite kind of weather? When it's chucking it down, when it's bucketing it down, when it's really heavy rain, when it's freezing. Yeah, I don't like that kind of weather. That's my least favorite kind of weather. Cool. Alright, let's move on then. So we have another question here. Highlight your favorite phrases. Yes, there's quite a lot of language here, but it is my belief that a good way to train up your production skills, the kind of vocabulary and language you use when you're speaking or when you're writing, a good way to do that is to make note of vocabulary and language that you like, the language that you consider to be useful, that you think you're likely to use, but also the ones that you warm to, the phrases that are your favorite. If you already feel like you have a kind of connection to this vocabulary, to this language, then you're more likely to use it naturally, and you're more likely to remember it as well. So it makes a lot of sense to start with that language and start trying to put that into use. So yeah, highlight your favorite phrases in this document. Okay, tea break. Part 2 practice. So here's the Speaking Part 2 question. One type of Part 2 question that you can get in the IELTS test about the weather. Describe your favorite kind of weather. What kind of weather it is, how often the weather occurs, what you do in this weather, and why you like this kind of weather. Okay, I've already given you some language that you can use to answer this kind of question. So I want you to try now. Pause the video. Give yourself a minute, make some notes, try talking for 2 minutes about your favorite kind of weather. Just give it a go. It will feel awful and your answer will likely be terrible, but trying is the most important part of doing this, of preparing for these kinds of questions. When I first saw this kind of question, I didn't really know what the hell I was going to say either. I tried it, sounded terrible, but because I tried, I had some idea of what to say then. Then I had something to work with. Then I could have something to improve on and to develop. So that's what you should do. Pause this video. Do it now. Okay, right. Let's move on. Let's have a look at my own answer then. This is my plan for that question. You can see the question underneath. So one of the questions in the Part 2 question is what kind of weather it is. Here's my answer to that, snowy but warm. And I go into a bit more detail about that. So I say that there is snowfall, the snow gathers, it settles, it's warm, you just have to wear a light coat, there's not much wind. What do I say next? So the next question is how often the weather occurs. Hardly ever. Once in a blue moon. I thought of an idiom, so I put that down. Maybe I'll talk about England, how often it happens in England. Once in my lifetime, or something like that. What you do in this weather? Go for a walk. Maybe I exercise. Everything's a different world in this kind of weather. It's a wonderland, a winter wonderland. Maybe I chill in a cafe. Why do I like this kind of weather? It's magical, it's kind of mysteriously contradictory, it's unique, it's special, it's comfortable and pretty. Okay, these are my notes. Let's have a look at my actual answer then. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do then. I'm gonna read aloud my answer in as natural way as possible. It takes about 1 minute and 40 seconds. If I said this in the actual exam, I'm sure it would take longer because, you know, there's more time for saying and this kind of thing and thinking about what to say next. So that's not going to be included so much when I read out the answer. But anyway, so I'm going to read it out. Here we go. I'm going to talk about my favourite kind of weather, and that is snowy but warm. Now what I mean by this is that there is snowfall, like snow is falling from the sky, and is enough for it to gather and settle everywhere. So the whole town gets covered with snow. But it's also warm. You only need to wear a light coat or jacket to go out in this kind of weather, and there are no bitterly or bitingly cold winds either. Of course, this kind of weather hardly ever happens. You know, it's like once in a blue moon. I remember that it happened sometimes in England, and I loved it. Something I like to do during this kind of weather is go out for a walk and explore. You know, it's a different world when it snows. Everything gets covered in snow, and so it looks completely different to how it was before. It's another kettle of fish, really. The whole place turns into a wonderland, and it reminds me of Christmas. So I like to walk about, really. Take photos, maybe chill in a cafe with a book and a cup of tea, a hot cup of tea. That's the best. As for why I like it, it's so magical and kind of contradictory. You know, when you see snow, you would expect it to be cold, but actually it is warm, so that's kind of awesome. I think for that reason, it is quite unique and special, and so I don't want to miss it. Ultimately, however, I like this weather because it's comfortable and pretty. Okay, and that's it. That's my answer, alright. Right, let's go study what language I use here and talk about that. I'm going to talk about my favourite kind of weather, and that's snowy but warm. Okay, nothing interesting there. Now, what I mean by this is that there's a lot of snowfall. Snow is falling from the sky. Okay. This kind of technique that you'll probably notice me doing in this answer, or you may have noticed, is that I kind of repeat myself, but not exactly. I'm paraphrasing myself. I'm saying pretty much the same thing that I just said, but in different words. This is completely acceptable in speaking, and it's very natural. It's what native speakers do all the time. They're repeating themselves, they're paraphrasing themselves again. It's a way of expressing yourself and explaining what it is you want to say. This is kind of different, though, to, like, writing, right? In writing, we don't really do this. In writing, what you should be aiming for is to say what you want to say, what you really mean to say, just once, and then move on. Like, it should all be clear in one go. In speaking, however, you can paraphrase yourself, and this is a great tactic to use because you show off more language, more vocabulary, probably different grammar as well. You know, here I used snowfall, this kind of noun, compound noun, and in here I use a verb instead, snow is falling. And apart from that, of course, it also adds on some more seconds to your speech, so you know, you don't you have less time to fill when you're talking in your speaking part 2 answer. So okay, we have that. And there's enough for it to gather. and settle everywhere. Yeah, that's something you can use when talking about snow. It gathers, it settles. Sure. So the whole town gets covered in snow. This again, I'm kind of paraphrasing what I just said. I already said gather and settle everywhere, and now I'm pretty much said the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing. I'm referring to the town here, but it is pretty close. But still, that's a good thing. But it's also warm. You only need to wear a light coat or jacket to go out in this kind of weather. And there are no bitterly or bitingly cold winds either. Using lots of adjectives is a good idea in speaking part 2. It adds on more time, it shows off more vocabulary. You can notice here that I'm pretty much saying the same thing as what I just said, with no bitterly cold winds, but I'm showing off more vocabulary, so that's good. Of course, this kind of weather hardly ever happens. You know, it's like once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. What does once in a blue moon mean? Well, hardly ever. Again, I'm paraphrasing myself, but I get to use an idiom, so that's nice. I remember having sometimes in England and I loved it. Something I like to do, bloody, go out for a walk, bloody. You know, it's a different world when it snows. Everything gets covered in snow, so it looks completely different. It's another kettle of fish, really. What does another kettle of fish as another idiom? It's another kettle of fish. What does that mean? Completely different. Another kettle of fish, it's used to compare two things. Living in England is another kettle of fish compared to living in Thailand. That's how you could use it. It's completely different. They're like two completely separate different things. So yeah, that's what another kettle of fish means. The whole place turns into a wonderland and it reminds me of Christmas. So I like to walk about, really. Take photos and maybe chill in a cafe with a book and a hot cup of tea. With a book and a hot cup of tea. Details, right? Try to give details. Same thing, really. It's vocabulary. It's taking more time off your speech. So that's nice. As for why I like it, it's so magical and kind of contradictory. You know, when you see snow, you would expect it to be cold, but actually it's warm, so that's awesome. Bloody, don't want to miss it. Bloody, okay. You'll probably notice that a lot of the less common vocabulary in this answer is not particularly related to weather, I guess you could say. You know, you got things like magical, contradictory, unique, special. What else? Another kettle of fish, once in a blue moon. So, let that show you then that even when you're talking about the weather, you can still get in quite a lot of very nice vocabulary that isn't specifically about the weather. That's it. That's my lesson. What should you do after this? Well, I would recommend you try answering this question again in light of seeing my model answer. Give it a go. What else can you do? You can try other similar kinds of questions about the weather. Describe your least favorite kind of weather. Describe a time when you experienced extreme weather. That's another speaking part 2 question I've seen. When trying these questions, the procedure that I would recommend is try answering it straight first. You know, like in an exam. You have the question, take a minute, make notes, try talking for 2 minutes, like that. Once you've done that, then try writing out your answer. So write out in paragraphs like I did. Try to match the paragraphs to the points in the question. Like, you notice here this paragraph is about what I like to do in this kind of weather. This paragraph is about how often this weather comes around. This is why I like it. Match the paragraphs to the questions. Try writing out your answer. When you're writing out your answer, then you can focus a bit more on ideas, on what to talk about. You can focus on vocabulary, looking up some words to help you. Prepare yourself a lot more. You do that. Once you've done that, read aloud your script, like I just did. Practice it. It will be practicing your speaking skill. I know it's not strictly your speaking skill because you're reading from a script, but nevertheless, just reading a text, it's not practicing the skill that you need to have. You need to get your mouth moving. So you do that a few times, When you feel more comfortable with it, then fine. Try it without the script. Try that a few times and then you'll get better. Now, okay, that seems like a lot to do for one question. But you do it for one question, you try again with a similar question, like, tell me about your favorite kind of weather, tell me about your least favorite kind of weather, tell me about a time you experienced extreme weather. These questions are all quite similar, and you can use some of the same ideas. Basically, you've got to do all these things for all the different types of questions, all the types of difficult, awkward speaking part 2 questions. It's only by doing that, it's only by trying that you'll feel more comfortable about it, you'll feel more confident about answering these kind of questions, and you'll learn the kind of vocabulary, you'll seek out the kind of vocabulary needed for answering these kinds of questions. Okay, that's it. Well, thank you very much for watching my video. This is my first video. Please let me know what you think about it, and if you want more. I'm probably going to make some more anyway, but it's always nice to get feedback, so yeah, I'd like that. That'd be cool. Alright then guys, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.